Well, good evening. Welcome to, what is this, November Equipped Live. I think we might have some people that are watching from their blinds, or they might be in by now, or they're going to be watching after they get back from the woods. So, Greg, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Good.
Good. No hunting for you this year?
I have not. I've been enjoying the opportunity to get work done.
Yes, I understand. So the questions that we have for today, these were submitted by me, and so I weave in questions from myself when we're running short on ones from others. But I had someone tell me, I like the questions you ask because you ask a little bit more personal things. So Greg hasn't turned them down yet. So we're going to kind of ask a couple questions that might get to a little more history, a little bit more personal things with Greg. So first question is, can you talk to us a little bit more about the history of your siblings and yourself in business? Like, how was it decided who was kind of going to take on what role? Was everybody in right from the start? Just paint a clearer picture of that for us.
Sure. It all sort of evolved naturally. And if I start out maybe with my brother Ron and dad, they actually in the early 70s had formed a business with another fellow from Southeast Michigan, and they were in business together about the same time. I was in high school. I was getting a reputation for knowing how to make cars go fast. My dad was helping me remodel the stable of one of our barns into a machine shop. Now, some time passes, 1974, uh, Ron's business with my dad and the other fella end up burning, and they were underinsured. So that was when Ron joined me out on the farm. And now we started working together. But prior to that, I had only been working with other folks that had cars and with some local farmers. But now Ron was able to bring work from Southeast Michigan primarily because he had worked down there before. And so now he's bringing work up, and that's how Ron and I got together. It was just sort of natural who had what role because he had an engineering degree. I was, I had a reputation for knowing how to fix things, do things with my hands, but did not have an engineering degree or any sort of office experience. So that seemed pretty natural. A year later, after we formed Omni in 1976, we had worked on the farm together for about a year. And then in 76, we formed Omni and moved into the building at 1995 East Hamilton Road. And that was actually, I think it was 1977 when Deb came home from University of Wyoming. And I like the way she tells the story. She came home for a summer job and she's still working her summer job.
A
But
long-term summer job.
yeah, and that kind of worked out naturally as well because by now Ron and I had enough actual business where we actually needed to start counting things like accounting. And Deb is just very conscientious, very pays very close attention to detail. And so that worked out really well. And now Deb, of course, is a bit innovative. And so we end up with a computer, and Deb ended up programming the first computer in Fortran and writing our own accounting software. And so there's still remnants of that being used today. That's the foundation of some of what we've done today. So it's I think pretty neat. But again, that all happened pretty naturally. It wasn't at least for me, it wasn't a hard decision of who should be doing what. We were doing what we naturally were pretty good at.
So you said Fortran. I don't know what that is. Is
That's a
that,
programming language.
oh, okay. So I could probably look that up. Is it still around? Is it still something that people use?
Maybe the US government. but
Okay.
I don't think private enterprise does. I
Okay,
think
I'll
the
have
U.S. government still uses punch cards. That was a predecessor.
that is probably true, yes. So, okay. Did the three of you always get along, or were there arguments along the way?
Uh, minimal arguments. And I think there was just a real high level of trust between the three of us. And that doesn't mean we always agreed on everything, but we trusted that the others had good intentions. And I think a big part of that was just the Judeo-Christian values that my mom and dad had, and that's what they taught us, and so we trusted each other. And the neat thing about that, Stephen Covey, not the dad, but the son, Stephen Covey, wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. And in that book, he talks about the measurable economic driver that trust really can be. And I think for us, that worked very well. And as a
Yeah,
matter of fact, I was, and not that I was worried about it, but there were several times through history where I was actually concerned that Deb and Ron were blindly trusting me and that they weren't necessarily doing enough due diligence on what I was doing to understand what I was doing, and that someday there was going to be a surprise, and now that could turn into maybe distrust. And I I don't know if they were concerned about the same thing and if they trusted me the same way, but that was I was probably more concerned about that than I was distrusting them.
I think I know Ron has passed away, but I think that we should get Deb on one of these calls and ask her these same questions and see from her perspective what this looks like. So, but this lends itself well to the next question. Being sort of a family-run group of businesses, what have been some of the biggest challenges and rewards of working with your siblings and now some of the adult children as well?
Well, as far as the rewards, we're doing fairly well financially. We're aligned on the way we distribute bonuses and so forth. And so I think there's just really good alignment there, really good results. I think, and this might go back to your prior question, but there's, I think one of the other things that probably helped us get along well is that Ron, Deb, and I all had more of an abundance mentality than a scarcity mentality. And so we were always striving to make the pie larger, so to speak, as opposed to quibbling about who has the larger piece and worrying about that. And so we were looking out the windshield more than we were looking in the rearview mirror. And yeah, I think that really helped for us to get along well. And that really, I think, has been key to creating some of the results that the business has gotten. I think maybe the reason I'm struggling to answer that question, Jackie, is that as owners, the owners have a role, but that's not the whole business. I mean, there's a lot of people that did a lot of good work, and so we essentially provided some of the resources, but it really isn't all us. I mean, we just happen to be the folks that facilitated it. Uh, another thing I think that's maybe really key here too to us getting along is the choice to operate in a business first model as opposed to a family first model. And so, with that, you've got, there's a recognition that you might be a family member, but you're going to be in the business based on merit, not on nepotism. And that, I think, there certainly have been some of those issues that have caused certain decisions to be made. But and Jan would probably have a little different feeling about this than I do, but just because she tells me I'm not quite as sensitive as maybe some other people. But I'm just not aware of issues between the family members, but I think it's because of the understanding that it takes merit. It's business first, not family first.
I have different relatives that work within the IFMC as well, and I noticed that when I started working with the companies that people referred to, even if they're related to someone, they referred to them still as their first name, not uncle or whatever. And so I I respected that, and I thought that was neat because it meant that when you're at business, you're putting business first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that I think is demonstrates what you're talking about to a degree. So when you have so you don't you put business first, but when you have family things going on, like say Christmas coming up, for example, do you guys have a rule that you keep business off the table?
No, no, but and this might be one of those areas where I'm not as sensitive as other people, and so I might be oblivious to some things. But and we talked about this before. I'm not sure I buy into the work-life balance thing. It's all opportunity. We're doing good. I mean, if you're doing good in a cooperative way with others, the line just gets really blurry for me between what's work and what's just good stuff. And I tend to not. I get bored pretty quick with things that don't add value. So I just struggle to play sports where there's no positive outcome at the end. I don't need that to feel good. I get rewards out of the business.
I completely agree. It's like Maslow's hierarchy. The people at the top of that pyramid, their whole life's aligned. They're not differentiating between my work self and my home self, and everything's aligned. So it makes a lot of sense that you believe that and say that. So this will probably be our last question for tonight. Were there other careers that you had in mind for yourself when you were younger, or was being in manufacturing or being a business owner like the thing you always wanted to do?
Well, there again, Jackie, I had thoughts, and I certainly considered a number of things along the way. My dad would have liked for me to take over the farm, but I just couldn't see how that math was going to work. And so I chose not to do that. I had thoughts of becoming an attorney, had thoughts of becoming an engineer, but from an early age, because I was able to solve problems and I enjoyed solving problems and enjoyed helping people, there were just so many opportunities to just do that and keep doing that, but keep escalating the scale of that and then get paid for it. Yeah, I just kind of followed the opportunities.
No, it makes sense. Was there ever a career that you knew you absolutely didn't want, like a surgeon or a teacher or something?
You know, I no, I and again I tend to chase opportunities, not focus on the things I don't want.
Hmm.
But I can see how anything to do with the public school system, I probably wouldn't be in favor of.
I mean, I could have guessed that, but I didn't know if that's how you felt at that time or not. Who knows?
Oh,
So.
I had a real dislike for school. To me, that was like going to prison.
What was it
It
about
was,
school? What didn't you like?
but it was, I had to be somewhere for a specific amount of time and I had to sit through, I had to focus on things that I wasn't interested in at the time. And, and it's interesting. I mean, how kind of deeply that's embedded. To this day, in late August, when I drive by a school, I just get a negative visceral reaction. I mean, it really was. It was like going to prison for me. I didn't like it.
Interesting. I still have dreams about like not being able to find my classroom or my knowing my locker combination, but it sounds like it goes much deeper for you than those
Oh,
things.
yeah, it was prison.
Yeah. Oh, well, this has been really interesting. We have, so anyone who's listening or who watches this after the fact, just know that you can submit questions to me for future episodes of Equip Live. I've got several more on the list here that I'll be asking Greg, but we're always open to others submitting them as well. And perhaps the conversations that we've had today spurred a couple of additional questions for you. So that being said, our next Equip Live will be December 15th. We did decide on that. We'll send a notification out just like we usually do. And then Greg, is there any final comments you'd like to say?
Well, I would encourage everyone to be thinking with an abundance mentality as opposed to a scarcity mentality and be trying to make the pie larger instead of quibbling over exactly what size a piece is.
It's a very healthy way to live your life. Absolutely. So excellent parting words. Thank you. Everyone have a wonderful Thanksgiving and we will see you guys in about a month. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, everyone.